Hello, it's always nice to be with you, of course, here on Bravo One. With me, I'm Ahmad Sudirwan. Yes, once again, of course, on Bravo's Radio Indonesia. Well, let's talk about economy. After we've heard President Joko Widodo delivered his speech before the Indonesian People's Consultative Assembly, or MPR, and also that was the annual meeting of Indonesian Parliament DPR together with DPD. We have known that there have been both hope and warning coming from the president's side for the Indonesian public or for the Indonesian people. Well, the president himself did not necessarily or did not precisely talk about or mention the word hope, nor the word warning, but at least that's the clear message that for everybody who has listened to his speech, that what he meant during his address to the highest assembly of Indonesian people is the fact that the country, Indonesia, is both hopeful about the economy, but at the same time, all Indonesians need to be careful or need to be on alert as far as economic and all the indicators are concerned. President Joko Widodo mentioned during his speech about several points, among others, about how the government has managed to control inflation rate in the country, which is now kept at around 4.6% so far, and also the fact that the economy or economic growth still well managed. We know that Indonesian economy would not have reached its initial target, but still, yes, within that corridor around 4.8 to 5% expected by many analysts, or also according to certain sources from the government. But of course, now there are worries or, yes, signals for anticipation for a possible higher inflation if the government should decide to increase the price of oil. So any oil price hike, many economists, many observers, and actually certain circles of the government have been reluctant to guarantee if there would not be followed by any strong reactions from the public. So it is one reason why actually the government has so far refrained from making that announcement to increase the price of fuel or gas in this case, which is called in Bahasa Indonesia or Indonesian as premium, now widely known as Pertalite. However, now, still back to the points from the president's speech. What are the other points mentioned during his speech? We will try to describe that in a few parts during our meeting this time. Now, let's go through it one by one. Once again, the president mentioned that the inflation rate has been controlled at 4.9%, and he quickly compared this inflation rate of Indonesia compared to those recorded by other ASEAN member countries, recorded at around or on an average of 7% of inflation rate, whereas in many other countries, particularly all the so-called developed countries, the inflation rate has been recorded at an average of around 9%, and this of course would include the USA. Another major point, as you can see on the table, is the fact that, according to President Joko Widodo, that during 2022, the Indonesian state budget has recorded a surplus of 106 trillion rupiah. And this is the very fact, according to the president, that has made the government able to sustain or to support the policy to continue providing subsidy for fuel, or called BBM in Indonesian, including gas and also for electricity, for a total of 502 trillion rupiah. Once again, a total subsidy of 502 trillion rupiah for fuel, gas, and electricity. Next, President Joko Widodo has pointed out to the fact that the Indonesian economy has grown at 5.44% during the second quarter of 2022. And this is, of course, also highlighted by the fact that the Indonesian trade balance has been in the positive or a surplus for 27 months in a row. The Indonesian trade balance has been in the positive. For the first semester of 2022 alone, the trade balance of Indonesia has been positive or reaching a surplus of 364 trillion rupiah. The next point highlighted by the president is the fact that Indonesia, which is known as a very rich country with natural resources, has been very fortunate since prices of Indonesia's commodities from the nature, in this case of course, has been contributing a lot, since the world prices of these commodities have been increasing all the time. And this in return, according to the president, has provided Indonesia with more foreign exchange reserve, of course, and increase the national, the national revenue, and this in return also rises the economy. So the economic growth has also risen for the fact that Indonesia has benefited a lot from the export of its natural resource commodities. The president has also mentioned about the fact that Indonesia has been winning the international or the global trusts lately. He is pointing out at the fact that Indonesia has been appointed to hold the presidency of G20 movement. We know that G20 will hold its summit in November 2022 in Bali, Indonesia, of course. Once again, the G20 summit will be held in November 2022 in Bali, of course, in Indonesia. And also, the president reminds Indonesians the fact that Indonesia will also hold the presidency of the, Southeast Asian countries grouping, or known as ASEAN, in 2023. So, in his own wording, President Joko Widodo has reiterated that Indonesia is currently at the top of international or global leadership. He also calls on Indonesia, the whole stakeholders of the country to look for efforts to industrialize the country's natural resources, or the current natural resources. We know that Indonesia is rich with nickel, bauxite, and other minerals, including tin, for instance. And President Joko Widodo has specifically highlighted the fact that Indonesia has benefited very significantly from the export of nickel. Only nickel. For 2022, Indonesia has recorded a return or a total return of 440 trillion rupiahs from the export of nickel alone. So, all in all, there are positive signs, as pointed out by President Joko Widodo during his national speech before the People's National Assembly or MPR, and also in front of members of Parliament on August the 16th, 2022, or one day prior to the Independence Day of the country, which is actually an annual calendar, an annual national calendar, during on which time the president will deliver his speech before not only all parliament members and members of the People's National Assembly, but also that was telecast live for the whole people. Of course, is a national telecast. So every single Indonesian has realized now that the country has indeed recorded many positive results in the past 1 year, particularly in 2022 alone, from all the figures and the facts, all those data presented by President Joko Widodo during his speech once again. But remember, at the same time, President Joko Widodo himself has actually hinted warnings for Indonesian people to be more serious. One, for the more careful and much wiser way of managing the country's natural resources. Although to date, Indonesia has been recording lots of revenue from the export of natural resources, not only oil, but more lately, in more recent years, more from the export of minerals, for instance, in particular nickel. We have heard from the president how Indonesia has recorded, yes, quite significantly from the export of nickel alone for more than 400 trillion rupiah in 2022 alone. But of course, we know that there is that, of course, risk that Indonesians are going to face this far. Aside from all those achievements, yes, that inflation may actually be a factor that Indonesia needs to control or to address correctly. Why? Because the fact that Indonesia, or more precisely Indonesians, the majority of Indonesians who have been enjoying subsidies for gas or fuel that they have consumed so far, huge, more than 500 trillion rupiah, or to be precise, 502 trillion rupiah for the subsidies of oil or gas, and including electricity, for instance. And that has been admitted by the president. That's really tough to handle. Kita tahu bahwa ternyata dalam pidato kenegaraannya, dalam pengantar nota keuangan, tentu saja menjelang peringatan 17 Agustus kemarin, tepatnya pada tanggal 16 Agustus tahun 2022, Presiden Joko Widodo berpidato pada sidang tahunan MPR dan juga sekaligus DPR dan DPD bahwa ada banyak faktor-faktor yang layak untuk diapresiasi terkait dengan pencapaian-pencapaian yang dicatat oleh Indonesia sepanjang tahun 2022, terutama di bidang ekonomi. Ada banyak catatan-catatan. Kita sudah dengarkan antara lain bahwa inflasi bisa dikendalikan pada level 4,6%, namun juga ada catatan lain bahwa pertumbuhan ekonomi juga cukup menjanjikan, walaupun di sisi lain kita tahu bahwa Presiden Joko Widodo mengingatkan atau memberikan semacam warning kepada rakyat, kepada masyarakat agar bahwa perlu keberhati-hatian. Mengapa? Karena dewasa ini global sedang menghadapi resiko atau bahaya, tanda kutip, resiko krisis energi. Sesuatu yang dicemaskan oleh tidak saja negara-negara yang berpenghasilan rendah, tapi juga sangat ditakutkan oleh negara-negara maju. Kita tahu bahwa di Amerika Serikat sendiri belum lama ini pemerintah Amerika Serikat menaikkan atau terpaksa menaikkan harga BBM mereka, dan itu menyebabkan inflasi di Amerika yang biasanya bisa dipertahankan di level 1% mendadak naik menjadi 9%. Itu level inflasi yang tertinggi yang pernah dicatat oleh Amerika Serikat, dan ini menimbulkan kekhawatiran luas. Begitu pula di banyak negara maju lainnya, sebagaimana dikatakan oleh Jokowi, banyak negara-negara terutama atau termasuk negara-negara maju mencatat atau mereka harus terpaksa menghadapi kenyataan inflasi mereka melonjak dengan tajam. Tentu saja ini akibat antara lain dampak dari krisis energi secara global. Antara lain selain dipicu oleh konflik Rusia dan Ukraina, yang tentu saja pada gilirannya mempengaruhi banyak faktor atau sektor lainnya, termasuk sektor migas tentu saja. Dan kekhawatiran terhadap inflasi ini juga diingatkan oleh Jokowi karena ini juga menimpa negara-negara lain di ASEAN, di kawasan Asia Tenggara ini, di mana Indonesia menjadi salah satu negara ASEAN. Rata-rata negara anggota ASEAN mencatat inflasi di level 7%. Jadi Indonesia masih cukup baik sejauh ini performa ekonominya atau kinerja ekonomi. Namun tentu saja bahaya inflasi yang tajam atau skyrocketing inflation atau inflasi yang ekstrim mungkin saja terjadi apabila pemerintah jadi menaikkan harga BBM pada angka keekonomian yang tentu saja baik bagi APBN atau anggaran belanja negara APBN untuk tahun yang berjalan ini 2022 maupun apalagi khususnya untuk 2023. Namun tentu saja angka keekonomian BBM itu apabila diterapkan akan terasa sangat berat bagi masyarakat, dan itu dikhawatirkan tidak saja oleh pengamat ekonomi tapi juga oleh kalangan pemerintahan sendiri. Bahkan Presiden Joko Widodo di awal bulan Agustus tahun 2022 berbicara kepada atau depan sejumlah wartawan menyatakan bahwa dikhawatirkan apabila angka keekonomian BBM ini, misalnya contoh Pertalite dinaikkan dari angka sekarang Rp7.650 per liter menjadi sekitar Rp17.000 untuk angka keekonomian internasional atau setara itu, maka bayangkan apa yang beliau katakan bahwa protes akan muncul. Tentu saja harus dipertimbangkan karena itu selain memberatkan bagi rakyat, tentu saja itu menimbulkan dampak-dampak lain yang tentu saja akan berentetan. Tentu saja seluruh masyarakat Indonesia, seluruh publik Indonesia, in fact, all Indonesian people would like to see the economic growth continue, but at the same time, life continues as well, not that harsh for most of them. Of course, it will depend on very much what happened in these upcoming weeks. Ini tentu saja semuanya tergantung pada apa yang akan dilakukan, kebijakan apa yang akan diambil pemerintah terkait dengan harga minyak, tepat harga BBM, lebih tepat lagi harga Pertalite, apakah akan tetap dinaikkan dan pada level berapa kenaikan itu. Tentu saja ini sangat ditunggu oleh masyarakat yang masih berharap bahwa kenaikan itu ketika memang harus dilakukan atau terpaksa dilakukan oleh pemerintah, tentu saja pada level yang tidak memberatkan masyarakat pada umumnya yang sekarang sedang atau masih berjuang berat, berjuang keras untuk mempertahankan kehidupan mereka setelah 2 tahun pandemi akibat COVID-19 yang luar biasa dampaknya. Tentu saja masih kita tunggu. Pada saat yang sama, tentu saja kita berharap semua kebijakan-kebijakan pemerintah, khususnya terkait dengan fiskal, lebih umum terkait dengan pandangan ekonomi, tentu saja akan dilaksanakan dengan tepat sasaran, tentu saja tepat bagi kepentingan rakyat masyarakat pada umumnya. I'd like to thank you very much for being with me this time. I hope to meet you again next time, of course, with other topic, which is, of course, hopefully more interesting than this one, and I guarantee that. Thank you very much for being with me, Ahmad Sudirwan. and salam Bravos.
Terima kasih Anda masih terus mendengarkan Bravos Radio dari Batu Ampar 1 nomor 6 Kramat Jati Jakarta Timur. Bravos, Bravos, your digital radio station.